I'm totally muted. That was amazing. That wasn't much of a fade out was what I was going to say, but then I was muted. So that trumped the conversation. Hi, everybody. We are a professional show over here. Anyway, speaking of professionals, my guest today, she's a super professional. And I'm so thrilled that she said yes to me. And I'm doubly thrilled that she was like, you want to cancel on me? No problem. Let's reschedule. Because I was super sick. We were supposed to have this conversation, and she was such a doll. And she said, yeah, no problem. So here she is. And we're going to talk about practice. So let me first tell you who we have on. It's Kimberley Smith from That Sweet Roar. And if you're a vocal nerd like me, you totally know who she is. You don't even need me to read this bio. But I'm going to read the bio anyway, because if I had to rate a description for a BFF, it would be this description. So I enjoy reading it, and I'm going to read it again. So hopefully she remembers what it is. It was something she wrote a while ago. So here we go. Vocal coach, writer, breakfast connoisseur, and arts lover who is partial to a good red wine, tough boxing sessions, creme brûlée, and cabaret. Kimberley is the founder of thatsweetroar.com and has helped thousands of singers on her site, as well as on her YouTube channel, InspiredToSingTV. She is also the author of the amazing book, The Moderately Tortured Artist, Your Permission Slip for Creating Epic Wholehearted Music. And she runs the Moderately Tortured Artist podcast. Come on in, Kim.
Hello. Yeah, gosh,
Lovely.
I wrote that on, I think that was my Twitter bio, like back in the days of using Twitter.
I don't even know what to say. That is like the epitome of words put together. I was just like, yes, if there's a site for best friends, that would be what mine would say. So
sweet.
without being creepy, I like
Not creepy at all. Not creepy at all.
I like that we matched today. It's quite well. We kind of same shade. We didn't plan this. See, BFFs, just saying.
Yeah.
So today, welcome, Kim. I'm so thrilled to have you back. It's been about a year, we think, and lots has happened since then. But today's episode's all about practice, and it's the P word. It has got so much on it, and everybody's got millions and millions and millions of questions. So there's so many places we can start with this one, but let's just start with the word practice. What does that word mean to you, and how has that shifted over the years of your practice, if you will? How what can you share this? That's a huge one, but
so practice when I was young was a dirty word in that it was just not fun. I just didn't want to do it. I was the world's worst practicer, which is kind of funny that I ended up becoming a vocal coach. But my singing teacher would be like, do this, this, and this. And I think why I didn't like it, there was a couple of reasons. One, I found it quite boring. Like the exercises I found boring, and the songs were always chosen for me. So they weren't songs that I wanted to sing. I wanted to sing Mariah Carey at age 11. So it was kind of fair that I wasn't blasting all of the songs on the Music Box album, but they were just chosen for me, and I felt like they were kid songs and I didn't have any interest in them. And the other thing was I didn't understand, and I couldn't have put this into words when I was this young, but later in university, this is what I understood was I didn't understand why I was doing the things that I was doing and where it was going to get me, because I didn't actually improve because of practice. No. And now I understand that it's because I had just ma, and for no reason, like other than to do scales. And like, it is beautiful to use your voice. I think part of the reason that some singers shy away from calling themselves singers is because they don't sing enough. So having a practice and actually doing it regularly is wonderful, and you build trust in your voice, but you're not actually going to change the things that drive you crazy about your voice. And so I think that was why I avoided it, is because I was like, I don't see the point in this. And then when I found teachers that like actually gave me exercises and tools and techniques and approaches that I heard in an instant, oh, wow, that's done that. Then I was on board with the whole practice thing. So then it became much more exciting and motivating, and I was curious about it. And that's when I kind of went in my vocal nerd journey, figuring out what does what, what exercises and approaches can have this impact on the voice.
Yep. You hit so many nuggets. You did. No, you hit so many great nuggets, and you answered my huge question like so succinctly. So A+
Awesome.
and gold star, first of all. Second of all, A+ and gold star for water too, because that's a good one.
Yes, hydration.
But you said, you can kind of pinpoint it to a different mentor and a different coaching style that got you thinking about practicing differently. And that's really important to some folks, is like, you really have to vibe with your coach. Singing teachers aren't all created equally. Like, you might think we are because we know how to teach singing, but there's different personalities that come out, and that affects the way they coach, right? And they also, certain teachers maybe do better with certain learning styles, yada, yada, yada. There's a whole rabbit hole, right? So for you, your coach kind of highlighted why you're doing things, and that was the green light, would you say, just to back up and like give it a one little nugget answer?
Yeah, and I think, like, for me, when an exercise or technique does what it's meant to do, it has pretty much an immediate result. I'm like, oh, this exercise, which has loosened my tongue, then makes my voice, my resonance double. Like, that is really clear to me. And so I'm like, well, of course I'm going to do this because it has this amazing impact. So the teacher doesn't even need to really put, 2 and 2 together for me, although a lot of students like that, very scientific explanation as to why that happens. But it was more like I could really viscerally and orally like get a sense for, this is what it's going to get me. Like, and so I think that, it just, I was used to going along at this real snail's pace and thinking, well, that the problems that I had 3 years ago, I still have. And then I started doing, when I left New Zealand, and I started doing research and working with international coaches, sometimes in person, sometimes online, that I vibed with, as you beautifully put it. That's when, things started moving for me. And that's when I got excited about practice.
Totally. And the other word you highlighted was curiosity. And I think that's a big one. It's like, if we take I've arrived and I'm the expert, then we're missing out a lot. And a lot of singing coaches can tend to rest in that space for a little while and not challenge themselves. And that's when things get stale for them as well. So it's a really key word, that curiosity, that beginner's mind. Just keep learning, keep trying. Yeah, for sure. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And it's not even necessarily like, yes, science is evolving all of the time. And so now we're talking to teachers, but so that's really important to stay on top of, because we're learning things about the voice, and we're learning things about like how our bodies create the voice all of the time, but also not resting on our laurels about the way we explain something. When you're talking about different learning styles, I feel like we need to have multiple ways of getting people to the same place so that we can keep trying things, and then the student actually gets there, rather than the student not understanding the one way that we have to explain it, and then feeling like it's on them, feeling like, oh my gosh, I must be stupid, or this is not for me because I'm not getting it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there is so many questions I have for you about this topic, because it's humongous. But one of them is, you hit on warm-ups, and, it actually is supposed to do something for you. It's not something that we check out and check our phone and sing and just get through it because it's so boring, and then we can rock out. So you hit the nail on the head. It's like, your warm-up should be, and workout combo, and we'll talk about the difference in a second, should be catered to your voice and what you need to loosen and open your voice, right? There's some static warm-ups like lip trills, and the vocal tube is really like hot right now with the straw and the water. But then, like you said, the tongue exercise that loosened the tension for you was like, ta-da! Wow, I didn't know I had tongue tension, but look at this. I feel like a different singer after I do this exercise. You want your warm-ups and workouts to feel like they're doing something for you. Can you elaborate a little bit more on, how do we know if it's not working? And how do we know if it is working? Is there any more tips and tricks you can offer there to kind of figure out where we need to go, or where we need to start, or if we're doing it right for our voices?
Yeah. Well, this whole question of, am I doing it right? I just did a video on this because I think it's really important. And it sort of goes back to the lesson in a way, in that the student needs to know when the new way is working, right? So they need to know the difference between the old default way that they do things, the way that that sounds, the way that that feels, how they think about it, or don't think about it to create it. And then the new habit, which they're, trying to fire new neural pathways in their brain that we want to become the new habit. And so that's the first piece of the puzzle. Is I'm always trying to get my students to do before and afters, and then put it in their own words, like asking them, what does it feel like that's different? What are you noticing? What are you hearing? Because not everybody is an oral learner. Some people are much more kinesthetic. Maybe they have a visual that they are thinking about that allows them to get there, or cues. And so the way to know if we're doing it right starts there. And then I actually like to create it around melodies that I'm using in my songs as well. So, I mean, some people love scales, and go for your life. Like, if people like scales, we use scales. That's awesome. But for me, there's scales trauma in my body. I'm like, nothing about this feels good for me, really. Unless it's maybe some agility work with riffs and runs and stuff. But for me, I like using the song, and I figure out what is it that is challenging about this song. So it could be a jump, for example. And I'm going to know if it's working, quote unquote, if that jump is getting freer, if it's getting more resonant, if it's sounding like it's a cohesive voice. So yeah, I tend to do kind of a mixture of different things that are approaching the gaps that singers are experiencing. So whether it is tension, whether it's cracking, whether it's that they've got a really breathy quality, then they're really listening out for, is the breathy quality gone? And that's going to be that green light. I talk about having green lights or amber lights, where you're it's not quite going, it's more in the default camp. How do I, make sure that it's a green light? In saying that, I mean, I know a lot of people warm up in the car on the way to their gigs. And so, anything, even if they're doing things like lip trills, you can do without as much focus. They are staple things about connecting with the breath and the voice and the body and that kind of thing. But yeah, when it's about, tongue position, learning vowel modification, for example, you're going to want to be present with that, and takes a little bit more focus. So has that answered the question?
It's totally good. And I love the terminology, excuse me, the green light instead of right. I really like that shift, because I hate right versus wrong language. And I tend to, that's our default, because we learned in school what's right and what's wrong. And so it pops out of our mouth. Or the word perfect. I hate that word too.
Yeah.
Again, I use it. I'm like, what's the perfect practice? I don't want to use that word.
Yeah. And with technique, I think there's so much fear with singers of doing it wrong. I always was afraid, if I'm doing it wrong, I'm going to lose my voice. I'm going to get vocal damage. We live in fear of that.
Yeah, we do.
And so I like to talk about it as efficiency. It's unwrapping efficiency, and it's building trust, and it's unwrapping just different colors and ways of expressing it. So we're just getting more and more of that, with the technique that we're doing. It takes some of the pressure off, the fear.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I often say to singers is that the warm up, it is your time to ask your body what you want it to do during the Mariah Carey song. So if you check out and you're like, whatever, mom, 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 then you will have that breath support behind the scenes in Vision of Love. That's what's gonna probably happen.
Get you there. Yeah, that song is a monster.
Yeah, so good. The riff at the end, don't even get me started. Oh, I love it. It's in my head now. I love her. I love her to beyond anything. Anyway, you get it. I know. So the warm-ups are important, and breathing. People, when they're in a rush, they want to skip the breathing and just get right to it. What would you say to that person that wants to skip breath in the warm-ups?
Often I don't say things. I will show them. So I like them to make the choice. I had singing teachers that shamed me for not doing things, and that's just not who I
Mm-mm.
want to be.
Mm-mm.
And so again, we'll do a before and after. So like sing this and like get a sense for how it feels, how it sounds. Then we're going to do a couple of breathing exercises and tell me if there's a difference. And there's always a positive difference, like, oh, it feels freer. And I notice that like I'm breathing lower down in my body and my nervous system has calmed down. And I'm like, cool. Now that you know that, like, you're an adult. Like I only teach adults. I'm like, you're an adult and you can choose to do it or not. And I just think that we have to have a lot more faith in our students sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I love that you show them, and that's exactly it. And I love that you ask them to recite in their own language. What's the difference? What are your words for what the difference is? Because their own language is so powerful to get them right back there. Whereas opposed to if we offer them the language, see, it's like this.
Yeah.
That might
And
not
some
resonate.
people can't come up with it. Some people actually do like you giving like, oh, did you hear this? Or did you notice this? And especially because I record lessons, they can go back and listen and build more of a sense of that. So there's definitely not a pressure to immediately know in the moment. But yeah, once they get their own language, it's so much easier for them to determine what is an orange light, amber light, and a green light for them.
Oh, super, super good. So when you are talking practice, what are the pieces that you would say, that would probably be a pretty sufficient little practice session that you've created for yourself there? Is it a warm up, a couple exercises followed by maybe not scales, but let's call it the workout section, followed by the singing of the songs, or what is there an order that you have that you like to offer? What does it look like?
I'm not a stickler for exactly a formula. I mean, it's also going to depend on what the singer is doing. So like if I'm doing a 4-hour gig of rock songs, that's going to be so different than if I'm just singing a couple of songs, with an acoustic guitarist or something. So you really want to fit it around the context. You want to fit it around what it is that you're doing. One thing that I find a lot of singers do with their scales particularly is they will do all blending scales. So they will go from their chest voice and they will blend all the way up into their head voice, and it'll be very sweet and very beautiful and very cohesive. But they'll do it when they're about to belt their face off doing musical theater or doing rock or doing pop, and they've done no belting warm-ups. Like they haven't even touched that area of their voice. And so that's one big thing that I think you should be highlighted is like, as you say, like, what are you about to go and do? And so you need to touch base with those things. And like for me, if I'm doing rock, like not only do I want it to be powerful, but I probably want it to be all like resonating at the front of my face. So then if I've got, vowel modification that I need to do, this might be getting too like deep into the weeds.
It's great.
But,
it's so good. Keep going.
For example, like, your R vowel is always going to want to like sink back, and then either we push it out or it sounds kind of a little bit swallowed or like borderline operatic for some people. And so I would do more exercises on that R vowel, like adjusting my tongue position so that it resonates in the way that I'm then wanting to in the contemporary music that I'm singing in. How many I do, again, it just depends on like the length of things that I'm wanting to do. I actually spend a lot of time on like stretching and self-massage before a gig, for example, which a lot of people would just breathe past, but I know that for me, it makes a real difference. And so again, it really comes down to what supports the singer, because I think that yes, there is like physiological benefits to doing a warm-up, but the psychological benefits almost outweigh the physical ones. Because if you feel good, a lot of singers like, I can't sing without a warm-up. And I'm like, you can, but like, if it makes you, if it feels better when you do it, then that's like the biggest thing. But like physically we can sing without a warm-up. It's just not going to be as good,
No, I totally. And you hit it, the psychological piece. Like I've seen some people who they show up to their lesson warmed up, and then we do the warm-ups, and then they shut down because there's a right versus wrong, black and white thinking, and it's like, oh, this warm up is not doing what we want. So let's
Mm.
shake that off and start again, right?
Yeah.
You gotta pick that up and getting in tune with yourself. I think the whole underlying thing that we're saying is your warm-ups need to be tailored to you and what you personally need in your voice, in your body, in your soul, like all that stuff. If you come from a really stressful day, you might need a longer warm-up or a shorter warm-up or more stretches or less stretches. Who knows? Whatever attitude
Yeah.
you're in, it might shift and change and morph just as your human instrument does, right? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yes, and your I think that your warm up and what you're working on, your workout as you call it, like
Mhm.
will change every few months as well. Like as you develop new habits, you'll be like, "Oh, I don't really need to focus there anymore. Like now where
Mhm.
is my focus? Where is the new gap? Where am I honing and where am I, you know,
Mhm.
increasing my freedom or resonance or like,
Mhm.
stretching into new territory with my range?" Like we get to keep evolving as well. I think that some people stick with the same warm up for like 4 years, and I don't know that that's really like giving us the benefits that we think that it
No,
is.
good for you for sticking to your warm up though. That is
True.
epic. You
True.
whatever you set your mind to, you're gonna nail it because you stuck with that warm up for 4 years. And
That's discipline. Yeah.
it totally is, and you're right, like, you have to look at what are you about to do because that will dictate what kind of warm up. So, for example, if you have a 4-hour gig, you maybe don't wanna warm up for 3 hours and practice that day really heavily. You maybe wanna have a shorter session. So, can you talk a little
Yeah.
bit about that and how long you might recommend for an example, a 4-hour rock gig versus a, "Hey, I just have time to practice today and I'm just gonna sing and I don't have any gigs this week." So, what would the difference between those 2 sessions look like in your world? Because it's very unique, right?
Yeah. You're right. And if you're doing a really long gig, I wouldn't suggest a warm up so much as in like when you don't have gigs, you would be working much more on your stamina. You would be building that in the background so that you
Mhm.
would be increasing that over time when you're performing. Yeah, this is such a great question. And again, I
Big
may be
one.
the wrong person to ask because I'm like not a
No!
stickler for
It
the formula. I wish like
yeah,
people want the formula, and that's
no.
I mean, I like, yeah, some type of like getting into your body, in your breath, like
Mhm,
expanding into the different pockets of the lungs that don't usually move.
mhm,
I like doing, yeah, lip trills or the straw just to like connect the breath and the vocal cords and give them a bit of a stretch.
mhm,
And then I like doing things that loosen up like jaw tension or tongue tension, depending on what people are dealing with,
mhm,
and making sure that there are ones that tackle, yeah, bigger sounds. So getting much more
mhm,
into calling, into emotional expression is a really big one that I think people miss.
yeah,
And that can be just so important for the longevity of doing something like that. Is it
mhm,
coming from your emotions? Because otherwise we're like thinking it and kind of often like there's a bit of force that comes through
mhm,
that.
mhm.
Yeah, so I don't know,
I
15
like it.
minutes.
I love it. Yeah, you know what? I love that we don't have a here's your prescribed formula because every voice is unique. Every day
Mm,
is unique. You show up a different person sometimes. Some days you're grumpy. Some days you're like, let's rock. Some
yeah,
days you're feeling really stressed and your voice is really shut down or you're tired.
yeah.
You're going to need different things from those sessions. And sometimes, yeah, I've done it too, where I'm like, you know what? I can't handle a lip trill right now. I just need to sing me some Jan Arden or some Amanda Marshall or Alanis Morissette and just get it out. And then we'll come back and I'll promise I'll warm up. Like, whatever.
Yeah,
Right? You just sometimes the human spirit needs what it needs in that day, and it's not wrong.
yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that something I wasn't ever told to do with my voice was to listen to what my body needed, to trust my
Mhm.
intuition.
Mhm.
And I think that's so empowering for singers. Like, again, it's this whole idea of doing it right or doing it wrong. Like,
Mhm.
I know that, like, when I've pushed my voice too much, I knew that, like, when I was losing my voice in my long gigs in my 20s, like, I knew that I was doing something wrong. And so I would like figure that out. I knew if I hadn't done enough of a warm up, or I knew if I'd done too much of a warm up or not the right things. Like, I think we kind of do learn by making mistakes a little bit, you know, and the idea of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to destroy my voice because I didn't warm up enough or I warmed up too much is so much.
Yeah. Oh no, we're frozen. Well,
If we'll hear do it again more, on my tongue, because my tongue was like being a real pain in the butt. I was so close to swearing there, and I just
I know we can swear on the show, and what's so fabulous is you froze for a second, and then you came in and were like ready to swear at the tongue. And I was just like, "This is awesome! What did we miss? This is so great."
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Good.
Well, welcome back, and yes, you can swear on the show. Fuck it, you can swear on the show. It's an adult. It's not made for kids. The kids can watch it if their parents are okay with it. So,
Lovely.
you nailed it. It's like we are humans and we are showing up. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably are done your counseling degree that you were working. You were working
I'm not
on
finished.
You're not finished. Okay,
No,
because I was like, wait, that was
yeah. I know.
So,
I know. I would love.
No,
to say
it's
that
all good. And I love that you have this accoutrement on top of vocal coaching. This counseling degree is, we're dealing with humans, and no two are the same. We're all snowflakes in the best way, not in the tongue-in-cheek way. We're all unique. And oftentimes it's that we talked a lot about this last time, safety. Can you talk about the word safety when it comes to singing and feeling safe and what that means for the voice, as opposed to maybe that idea of perfection and getting it right and not feeling safe in the situation, what the difference would be between the two situations?
Yeah. Are we talking about lessons, practice, or performance?
Oh, you are so good. I'll leave it with you. I will just say, opening your voice around other people.
Yeah. Well, let's start with practice, because that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
So something I hear a lot with singers about practice is that they are really worried about their neighbors hearing them. And so they're like, I don't feel comfortable practicing, or I do practice, but I feel like there's a lot of tension there. And of course there is. If you don't feel safe being heard, you're actually holding back. So often people will hold their breath, like physically hold it back. Some people will create a lot of tension through the throat, through the tongue. They won't open their mouths very wide. So if we feel like it's too risky to actually, be ourselves, to be heard, to be loud and expressive, we then create barriers to that. It's this protective mechanism. And so it can be vocally fatiguing if we go in that direction. It can be very demoralizing because you're not getting a sound that you would say if you're, singing in a singing lesson in a studio where you don't worry about being heard. You don't have your flatmate or your partner or neighbors or whatever. And so often I'm coming up with solutions with singers as to how is it that you can make yourself feel safer. Sometimes if they've got a car, they'll go and park that down a quiet street and sing it in the car. I've had one put a huge mattress in their cupboard and go in there and like soundproof it out.
Love it.
Singing into a pillow sometimes to muffle the sound. And then when it comes to lessons, often when I'm doing first initial lessons with students, I ask them if they would feel more comfortable turning their camera off. And, people are so surprised. They're like, oh, I didn't even think about it. But yeah, there's something in my nervous system that settles a little bit, not being watched and not having myself on camera. And so there are just really small ways. We're just asking the question of what would make me feel 5 or 10% safer in this situation can come up with, really amazing solutions. And so it's a big part of what I do.
I love that. That's a key part, because the more you, for example, turn your camera off, you probably always won't need to do that.
No. Oh, it's
will just get you through those things all that much faster, so that you feel like, I can leave my camera on today.
Exactly. Because I think when I was growing up particularly, and probably still is, there's such a focus on progress and like pushing outside of our comfort zones. I mean, that's just in our culture, right? For everything, faster progress, like get out there, go and do it, just do it. It's the Nike kind of situation. And the problem with that is particularly when it comes to performance and it comes to auditions and putting ourselves in those really vulnerable situations, because then our nervous system kind of goes into fight, flight, or freeze, and we don't know what to do with that. And I think if we can normalize taking smaller steps where, singing in front of a singing teacher for the first time is already nervous.
That's awful. It's
right?
awful.
And so like, it's not cheating to turn your camera off for the first time that you sing in front of somebody. Like that's just a nice self-honoring thing that you're doing for yourself.
Yeah.
And then, like the next lesson, they're like, most people are like, oh, that's totally fine. Like, I know you now, and there's built trust there.
Yeah.
But it's the same as people, throwing themselves into a performance situation in front of a lot of people and who they don't know, and they're like really freaked out about, or an audition where they're being critiqued, or competition, or doing it in spaces where they actually feel like they belong, that they are being encouraged, that there's not going to be any criticism or judgment there. And so if we can normalize these smaller steps when we're doing something that is incredibly brave, incredibly vulnerable, and incredibly personal, I think that people actually make a lot more progress, and we don't have this embedded like stage fright, or like, I can't perform, I'm not a performer, imposter syndrome come up so much.
Oh, this is the thing. This is the thing to singing, because first of all, if you sing for someone and you've never sang for them before, your voice might be different, because you might be in fight or flight and it kind of shuts down and you're like, what the hell was that? I sing much better than at home. Why didn't I sing like that? Or if you're like me, the recording booth has a really special magic from hell, where you show up and you're like, what the heck? Why isn't my voice working? And then you go over to computer to restart and you practice singing and you do it exactly how you want to. And then you go over to your mic, which is over there, and it doesn't work again. And you're like, what the shit? That is the psychological,
we have to build capacity. It's so true. I just wanted to interject. The first question that comes out of my mouth in an initial lesson with somebody when they've sung for me the first time is there a difference between when you do this at home and what you just did here? Because there's no point in me going in and like problem solving stuff about their voice that isn't actually a problem. It's because they're nervous.
Right? Exactly. And we know, as teachers, we know that you're going to be probably nervous and it's not your best singing that you've ever done in your life. Like we know that. So it's going to be okay. And if it takes a while to get comfortable with your coach, that's cool. Where I want to bring up the red light, if you will, is if you've been working with your coach for a few years and you're not comfortable with him. Like that's not a match. That's just not a match.
Great. Definitely. Agreed.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. There's so much to talk about here, but I think we've hit on the big pieces, which is the safety, the curiosity, the uniqueness, and tailoring your practice sessions. Definitely the help of a coach, that's invaluable. Like, you are not expected to know what kind of warm-ups and workouts you need if you don't even know A, what's on the list of things to choose from, but B, what the heck, where does my voice fit into all this? And so that's where enlisting the help of a professional is really, really great. And checking in with that professional to see how you're doing, that's good too, because that's not on you. You shouldn't know that. You know how you're going to start to know your body and know what you need. And ultimately, let's put this out there, you are the guru to your voice. It's just the coach is going to help you create words and language and tools around what you're feeling and what you're experiencing to get you back in that open spot each time quicker. Like that's the feedback or the mirror. So good. Oh my goodness. So practice in terms of consistent, what constitutes a consistent, committed practice in your mind? Because I know a lot of people have like the weirdest, it's what they do to their workouts at the gym. They're like 5 days a week, must look like this or I failed. So to those people, what does it constitute a consistent? Good job. You are consistent. You are practicing. You are committed. You're doing good. What is that?
I think like what I'm really interested in is helping people want to practice.
Nice.
So it's kind of coming from a different door than the like, discipline, tick it off your to-do list, Dua.
Thank you.
Again, it's like I want to like show people and get them excited about what is possible. And so I guess like one of the things that we were sort of talking about when looking at this discussion was like, what makes it a beautiful relationship? Like your voice, like coming into union, like going on dates with each other is the way that I like to think about it. And what makes it a strained relationship? Because I don't want to sit here and tell people to go and do something that feels painful, that feels like pulling teeth, and they're only doing it because they should, because good singers practice 5 days a week or whatever it is. I want you to want to practice.
Yes.
So what I think makes it this strained relationship so much of the time is when our self-worth is tangled in with the outcome.
Ooh.
If we can separate those two things, we get more curiosity, we get more play, we get people actually like remembering that this is an expressive art form. It's not just a skill that you are developing. Like it is, it's both.
Yeah.
But it's when we have these really high and heavy expectations that our voice needs to always be performing for us in order for us to feel good enough, and even in order for us to call ourselves a singer. That's when it becomes really problematic. And so I'm interested in like, can we take this weight off so that you then want to? The other thing is that we need to remember that in singing, we're constantly challenging ourselves. We're constantly at that like friction point of getting better and doing harder and harder things. And so one of the things I like to do is like go and sing something that you learnt like a year ago. Like remind yourself how far you've actually come, because everything about like learning something new does create that concern of like, am I doing it right? Am I doing good enough? Am I making enough progress? Like, and what does this ultimately mean about me and my future and my ability to perform and my worth as an artist? And so, yeah, I think that that's more along the lines of what I like to talk about. And then you find that people are like, oh, I'm practicing like every day. Like I can't stop singing.
Right.
And the other part of it is that, so I did a blog post about the 4 types of practice, and I linked them with the 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because that is my vintage.
How did I mean, again, there we are. We must be the same age or something, because I'm like, wait a minute. Michelangelo was my favorite one.
Me too.
I know. He was the best one. I know. Obvious. Yeah. But
I think that you can tell more about a friendship. It's like, who was your turtle, more than like star signs and all that human design. Nah, turtle. It's about a turtle.
Even more
love
than
for everybody with their favorite turtles, though. Yeah. So I count everything as practice. I think that often we focus just on deep technical practice, which is creating new neural pathways, teaching the body how to do things more efficiently or like in a different way to create different sounds, colors, expressions, whatever. That's great. That's Donatello. That's what he does. It's so cerebral, right? But there are other types of practice. So there's incidental practice. Like when my students are like, oh, I've really just like sung in the car, or I've sung in the shower, I'm like, that is singing.
That
like
counts.
You make discoveries in there. And often people actually sing way better with incidental singing than they do when they're like trying really hard to do stuff. Things come out more naturally. They're not like, they don't have the pressure of this better work, otherwise I'm a failure, right? It's just like, oh, singing something that I love to do and I want to do it now.
Fun.
There's a freedom in it. The third one is tapping into what is sacred about singing. So some people might find this when they're doing chanting. Some people sing at church.
This is Raphael.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't put it as Raphael. I wish that I did.
Splinter?
No,
Which one?
Leonardo. Like it's about devotion. It's about like.
No, yeah. Okay.
I think that's what I did. I wrote this a while
he does
ago.
do that.
And the fourth one is emotional expression. Like, where is the space that you've created to feel something and then go for it. Because if you only focus on Donatello, if you only focus on the like retraining of habits, and you never like sing in the car, or you never just emotionally express yourself, you don't know what habits have become default. You don't know what you've been working on has actually become solidified in your body, and you don't need to think about it anymore. That's what happens in these other types of practice. And it also just, it builds trust with your voice. When you emotionally sing something, you're like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Like I gave myself goosebumps. You're more likely to start to just show more of yourself when you are performing, because it's a trust issue often when we overthink it and we try to like kind of micromanage our voice, is because we don't know what's going to come out. But the more time that you can actually spend not micromanaging it and realizing, that's actually usually better or just as good, then you have some confidence and some trust in your voice when you go to perform.
I'm going to link to that article in the show notes, because that is epic. That is so great. It's so great. We need different kinds of practice. And again, I can hear all the type A's, because I have one in my head going, okay, so we're going to interchange one type of practice and then the next type of practice. So we make sure each week we get the ball. No, please don't do that.
Well,
if you need to, I guess you can.
Totally. Yeah, you too. You do you. Like that is not me. But
maybe
some people, they need a schedule.
Please don't do that.
So like, you schedule it. You do whatever makes you feel good. Yeah.
Jill, don't do that though. Please don't do that.
If it's not who you are, don't do that.
No, it's who I think I should be. This is a fun one. So who you think you should be, that nattering voice, but who you actually want to be is like, no, I just want to be Ariel on the rock and sing when I'm swimming. Like I don't want to be like, and now get into the practice room and open the book. No, that's not me. Sometimes I like doing that, but not as the main event all the time. That's not my practice style. So I don't know which turtle I would be mostly. That's really interesting to me. I'm going to check this out. I vaguely remember it, so I'm going to have to check it out again, because it's just awesome. So you mentioned, when we have those moments that we sing and we're like, wow, that was amazing. I wanted to bring up the fact that a lot of people have recording devices in their practice, and it's an awesome tool. And I wonder if you can speak to how, when we listen back, it's sometimes not what we think. So, for example, sometimes it's way more awesome than we thought we did. And we're like, what the heck? How come I didn't pick that up when I was in it? And sometimes it's not as awesome as we thought it was, in terms of when we're listening back and we're out of doing the sounds. And we can sometimes have a weird relationship with our ears and trusting those ears as to, in the moment, what's actually happening. What do you say to those people?
Yeah, well, we're hearing ourselves differently to the way that other people are hearing us. We hear a lot of the sound resonating in our faces and in the cavities of our head, and like resonating off our bones and things like that. And other people are hearing what is going out there. I like to do a thing called monkey ears, where I cup my hands around my ears and my elbows out as straight as I can in front of me, so that I capture a little bit more of that sound that is actually what other people are hearing. It amplifies it. And so I often will get singers to do that if they're just not really sure what they sound like. In a recording, particularly on your phone, like if you're in a studio situation, it's different, but a lot of people are recording on their phone or on a computer or something. The sound is compressed. And so I've actually got another article on my website about this, because it's like, why does my voice sound bad when I'm recording it? And there's a clip in there that I embedded in it that has a before and after of a girl singing, and then when we hear it and it's compressed, and it takes all of the it takes a lot of the resonance out of it, it takes a lot of the juice out of it, like the expression and the color, and it kind of like dulls it down a little bit. And so that's another thing definitely to factor in. I suggest that people listen for pitch. That's something that is always going to be captured in, and you can trust on a device. And like things like vocal quality when it comes to breathy versus clear. and just sort of the basics rather than actually judging the whole picture, because it doesn't really give us that, unfortunately.
No,
If you've
that's
got a
so
mic
good.
and an amp, then it's awesome. But
Then
not
it's
everybody has that.
awesome. Or if you've got, like, if you sing into a mic and you have it in your ears while you're singing, that's pretty cool too. I mean, it's a little bit weird but we do it in the recording studio, so it's somewhat natural.
Actually, that reminds me of what you were saying about record in the recording studio and how it like throws you off. Is that what you were saying?
Oh yeah, I
cool.
struggled for a long time with this. Yeah.
So something that I have been trying to reiterate to students recently is that you can be an advanced singer in one context and a beginner in another.
Nicely said.
So I think sometimes intermediate and advanced singers go in and they're like, okay, cool. Like I've got this. Like,
I got this.
I've been singing for like 10 years or whatever.
Right?
And then it all falls apart and they're really nervous and they don't expect it. And they feel like, oh my gosh, like what the hell? Like maybe I'm just not cut out for this. That thought of not cut out for
nightmare
this is like
of that.
my whole career is going to be about like turning that on its head, like ripping that out of people's heads with love, obviously.
Of course.
But yeah, so like I have singers who will be in a lesson, and when I'm back in Melbourne, we go out for karaoke sessions. And I say to them, I'm like, if it's 60% as good as you've done in your lesson, you are killing it. Like this is a totally different context. Can you let yourself like build the capacity for all of the sensations that come with doing something new? Like you're stretching and you will get better at it. But at the moment, like it's still new. It's going to be a totally different situation. And so the recording studio is something that we don't do often. We actually are not, what was I saying before? About performance, we are practicing performance in real time. You cannot practice performance in the practice room.
No.
We don't have practice performance, really. You're in it and you're like, oh, well, why am I not really good at this? You are practicing. Like, what if we thought about every performance as I am practicing getting better at performing?
Like yoga. That's what I think. I like the yogis call it their practice. The whole thing, like, or your love affair with singing, whatever. Like maybe it's not about sessions and putting in time, like the old school mentality. It's a bigger, it's really life. Your life with music. That's huge and intangible.
Yeah, but you don't practice to perform great.
No.
We practice to like develop our voice, to like get to know it better, to like explore different things. And then the performance is practicing performing.
Yep. Oh, I love
Until
that.
we've done it for a long time. And then, like now we just perform and we're not learning as we go. But so many of the initial performances, and every time the context changes, if you've got a new sound guy, if you're singing with a band, but you've never done that before, if you've never been in the recording studio, like give yourself some compassion that you're like, this is new. So it's going to throw me and I'm going to have to like practice performing in this context.
And if you use your tools, here's the good news. If you use your tools, you can come back to center and you're not completely thrown in the gig as shit and it's over and it's done. You might as well quit singing like that. It doesn't need to go that far down the route. Negative. It's just, hey, this might throw you off for a second. So you may need some extra tools to come back to center. And even at that, it may, because it's your first time singing with this band, it might not be 110% of what you usually can do. It's just, and it's okay.
Well, and it's funny. I had a student who was going into her first performance and she was really nervous. And I said, well, what would you like it to be? And she said, I just want to have fun. And I said, I would love that for you. Like,
I would love that for you too.
More. But if you have the expectation that it should be fun, you're probably not going to have fun.
No.
If you can lower your expectations and just let it be about you supporting yourself in this new context, that's when actually you're able to have more fun. That's when things go right. Then she had a great time. She was like, oh, I was just in the music and I was like in there with everybody. But
Yeah.
if she'd gone going, I have to make this fun, or I have to
Right.
make this perfect, or I have to hit this note that I've been practicing on, that's when it gets really problematic. So yeah, just not saying
Yeah.
that like it's going to be an absolute disaster, but if you actually can, this is what I mean about prizing the self-worth from the outcome.
Mhm.
If you can start to do that, you always get a better outcome, and you always feel better because you've backed yourself. You're not going to be like, if you tank this, you are just a worthless piece of shit.
You need to quit singing. Yeah. Like, because we could do that to ourselves. We can like
Totally.
grandiosity of thinking and like, okay, I gotta start from square one. Let's get the, planning board out and find a new career. And it's like, wait a minute, just hold on a second.
Singers are a special breed. They can do that over one note.
I know.
One note doesn't go according to plan, and they are a disaster.
Yep.
I love us, but wow,
I love
like,
us
yeah,
too.
we're a special breed.
We care so much. We care so much. So if we can drop that judgment though and accept what is and realize that we can, you know, we don't have to just sit in the crap, but we can go, okay, there's some crap here, but how can we turn this into a positive? Awesome.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about original songs in your practice, because I have a lot of people that say, "Oh my God, what's my sound? I don't know how to find my sound." And they don't know what to practice, and they don't know when they've found their sound, but they just don't like it. Don't like it, right? So,
Mm.
what do you say to folks like that where they just feel really stuck on finding what they call their sound in their practice?
Yeah, I have two answers to this, and they're
Mhm.
different.
I love
So
this. Yep.
one is like, if you actually can just like tap into the emotional expression of it, and
Mhm.
again like separate this idea of like it needing to sound a specific way in order for it to be good and for you to be good, often
Mhm.
really interesting stuff will come out of that.
Nice.
The other thing is like, I will get singers to think about singers that they love. And
Mhm.
rather than like comparing ourselves to the singer, because they're usually like, miles away. They've been doing it for 20 years and they've been, all over
Yeah.
the world performing.
Yeah.
I ask like, what qualities do you like in their voice? What is it that you love about their voice?
Mhm.
And so is it more resonance? Is it the power? Is it agility? Because they want to do runs.
Mhm.
And so then you can get really specific about where they feel that gap is. And they're telling you. That's the
Right.
important thing, is that the singing teacher isn't telling them
Yep.
what they want their voice to sound like, but they're getting a clearer picture because of the voices that they're drawn to. Is it
Mhm.
a darker color? Is it a brighter color? Like, what is it that makes, that connection for you about the voice? And
Mhm.
also often I will find that people are like, it's just like the way that I feel them. And so then we're back to the emotional expression piece
Nice.
anyway.
Full circle.
Yeah.
Yes. It's the feeling. Oftentimes when you try to force or sound like somebody, it just comes across feeling like sounding like a over actor or something, like, at least in my experience. Whereas if you're just, like, in it and you just let it come out and you're more internally focused instead of like, "What does it sound like?" It's just awesome. And it
Yeah.
feels like, "Well, I didn't even really try though." I didn't
There's a je
it
ne
just
sais
feels
quoi.
effortless.
There is
Yes.
definitely a special sauce when you do that.
Yeah.
In saying like our default way of shaping our mouths and like the
Mhm.
position that our tongue is in and stuff
Mhm.
might not be the way that we love. So if you like
Mhm.
really dark, rich sounds, for example, like you love your Adeles and you love your Whitney Houstons and
Yeah.
Jennifer Hudson and stuff like that, and you're
Yeah.
wanting that kind of color, but you're like always sort of stretching and smiling when you sing really naturally,
Uh-huh.
that's going to be two completely different things. So that's when I
Yeah.
think like the question can be really helpful, because we can go, oh, actually, if you like shape your mouth a little bit more
Right.
oval shape, you're going to get a completely different color. And
Right.
then they go, oh, wow, well, now I love my sound. And you've got somewhere to start with, because they're excited about what
Yeah.
I love. One small change that is such a small deal, it seems like such an
Mhm.
easy thing to do, can
Mhm.
dramatically change someone's voice. And then they go, if that's possible, like, oh my gosh, all of these other things that I didn't think were possible for me might be.
Yeah. Yeah. My last question is there ever a song that's like, we should wait on that? So that's a big
Yeah. Oh
challenging
yeah.
song and we should wait on that
Oh
song.
yeah.
Yes. Okay.
For sure.
What's the parameters around set yourself up for success? So choose a song that has 25% hard stuff and
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. What would you say? Like someone brings you
Yeah.
Vision of Love and they never had a singing lesson before and they are just working on pitch, for example.
Yeah. Well, that
Big one, right?
That's I would, suggest that we work on something more simple, a little bit like slower, that doesn't have all of the riffs for that. But
Yeah.
I think most of the time we've probably got people that are even like, they've got something under their belts and they're wanting to do really, really hard things. So one of my friends for her wedding asked me to sing Love on Top by Beyonce, for example.
Nice. Oh my God.
What?
You nailed it.
And I saw this Instagram reel of this guy singing it, and he just got progressively more sweaty. It was like obviously a parody, but I was like, yes, I spent 3 months trying to sing that song, and I still sang it down a tone, I think, or down a semitone. So that is not cheating, people, for performances.
That is not
like
cheating.
Even if you can sing it at pitch, like please pitch
I need
it
to
down
see
when you're
this sweaty video though. I need it in my life.
But most of the time it's, people are wanting to do these massive anthems where they're belting their face off and their voice just isn't quite there. And so they're straining or they're flipping into their head voice. That's kind of the most common thing that I will see in my students. And what I'll do is I'll just get them, if they desperately want to sing that song and that's the only barrier, we pitch it down. Because I had a singing teacher who was like, you can't sing any of these things. Like we have to sing, as I said, these like kids songs over here. And I was like,
yeah,
I want to sing the songs. I want people to sing what they want to sing, because then they're going to practice more frequently. Like we need to make it a great experience for people in order for them to want to practice. And so usually I will say like a semitone or a tone like past where you were at, usually a semitone, if it's to do with range and power and things like that, because any more than that, you're going to like recruit other muscles to try to push that. It's going to be really challenging for you to do it in this new way, which is a lot freer. And we want you to have some successes pretty quickly as well. So if we're doing that in a lesson, like they're having these green lights so that they can go back and do that in practice. If it's too big of a gap, if it's like, 4 notes difference, it's going to be really sporadic that they actually get that in that new way. But it's if it's a real beginner, I think actually what I find with beginners is they don't give themselves enough credit. So I've got some really like musical people and they're like, whoa, I don't want to do anything that's like too crazy. And I'm like, hey, I think you could do this.
I love that.
One that's like nudging them in the direction of
when they tell you what they can't do, I'm like, great, let's go there.
Oh yeah,
just check it out.
Oh yeah, I'm so with you.
And let's go back, because the beginner that's like Mariah Carey or bust, like good on you. Because that is courage. That is awesome. And we will get you a bridge song so that you can have work your way into it while still playing with it. Like we will make this happen for you.
If I was teaching, I mean, I don't teach kids, but if I was teaching myself back then, I would be like, cool, let's like work on the verses. Like let's work on part of that song that is within your wheelhouse. We don't need to go and do all this crazy stuff. We can work on, and again, if someone had told me we're working on these agility exercises so that you can do this riff at the end of Vision of Love, I would have been like, I am on it. Like
let's do this. Turtle power. Like that's what I would say.
Connection wasn't made for me. And I mean, I was with a classical singing coach anyway, so I was like veered into classical when I wanted to do pop stuff. So that's a whole different kettle of fish.
That's a whole nother ball game, that one. I so enjoy you, and we've gone a minute over, so I apologize. And oh my God, you're a busy lady. So you can find Kim online at thatsweetroar.com, and she's on everywhere on socials. So just go to her website and you will find all of her beautiful socials, her books, all her courses and programs, and all kinds of cool things. Sign up for her newsletter. It's fabulous.
Thank you.
And okay. So I'm going to leave you with the last word, Kim. What's the number one takeaway for practice, making it into a love affair, or not making it? That sounds very aggressive. turning practice into a love affair or seeing practice as a love affair? What's the number one takeaway here? Hard.
I think just rewarding yourself for any kind of practice and like letting what you feel like kind of dictate your entry point. Like you don't have to sing the song that you've been working on with your teacher if that just feels like kind of meh to you. Sing something else. Like go and sing something that makes you feel fun, that changes your mood, because once you start, it's kind of like the idea of putting your shoes on to go to the gym. Like just put your shoes on.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
start singing. Like you always are going to feel better
So
if you
good.
start from that point of like, oh, I love this and I love this song, and you'll probably find that you keep going. But yeah, all practice is practice. We don't need any practice shaming in this industry.
Yes, queen. Oh, where can we hear you singing Love on Top? Because that's my next question.
Oh, I don't have that actually. That was just a once off.
Okay,
But
fine.
that, I mean, I love challenges at the moment. I'm like teaching myself how to riff faster. So that could be a challenge that you've just set me, that I
do you
work on that
accept?
again. Yeah, this
Okay.
was a few years ago. So
She accepts. You heard it here. All right, my love. Thank you so much for being on the show. And I will say goodbye and I will close off the show. Bye, Kim. Oh, she's awesome. Right? So awesome. Oh my goodness. So that was a show about practice and the P word. And we can make it a happy word. We can make it a love affair word. If it feels heavy to you, that's okay. You're not doing it wrong. Just maybe we need a little bit of a shift, a little bit of a reminder of why the heck we're there in the first place doing the thing we're doing, right? Why are we singing? What was it? What was that moment way back when you went, that is cool? For me, it was Little Mermaid. And I just watched the live action not that long, 2 days ago or 3 days ago. And it's still like ping, 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 ping. So connection. We want to do this for a reason, and it loves us back. So plain and simply, if you're having some kind of strange relationship with practice, we can change that. We can change that. You can find more about us at Voxsana.co, or Facebook. Here we are, old school. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm on Facebook. It makes sense, right? Voxsana.co. And check out our YouTube page for our latest schedule. And until next time, I'm going to be my own producer. And I'm going to sing you out here. I don't know which one it is. This one. Okay, thanks for being here. And we'll catch you next time on the Voxsana podcast.